Okay.
Are we live?
No, not yet, not yet. Wait
Right.
for it.
All right.
Okay, now we're live. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Random Respawn, where we talk about gaming news, gaming things, and gaming stuff. I'm Vajosh Raptor, and to the window on the right is Calebite,
Hello.
and then to the window, if you went right and then you Pac-Maned
The
it and
other
came
right?
out through the other side, you'd get to Grand Marshal.
Howdy.
So basically today, actually, I'd like to start off by thanking our Patreon donators. All right, they've been thanked.
We have a Patreon.
They've been thanked.
What?
I'm just kidding. So today we're actually going to talk about games as a service. And Marsh, go ahead and give an overview, since this was kind of your topic idea, as to what this is about.
So the whole thing for me started with a thing that EA came out with the other day. By the way, hi Lord Lions. Hopefully you can enjoy the stream. Where EA was basically their motto going forward. It sounded like they were just saying, "Look, we're not going to really do single player games a whole lot anymore. We're going to just push forward and do mostly multiplayer." That is mostly open world, and that is going to be like a game as a service where it's not just this real like static thing where it's you make it and then you're done with it and you move on. It's you make it, then you build onto it, then you build onto it, and you build onto it, and then you build onto it, and you keep building onto it. I guess a good example of this is Destiny or Destiny 2, if you want to go down that route, where you have your base game, but then they keep adding on to it with expansions and then seasonal updates where they add more stuff to it and things like that. But yeah, I worry, which is why I wanted to bring it up, because I worry that for some games it doesn't make sense to do it, where they're kind of trying to throw stuff in for the sake of throwing it in, and others it totally makes sense. So, what do you guys think? What are your thoughts?
So I guess the best way to
To try and unpack this, yeah.
right is to think about like where it started. So did it start with MOBAs? Not MOBAs, MMOs, you know what I mean? So did it start with like Warcraft and the $12 a month thing, because that was a service, but there was more than, but then you also had to buy the expansions on top of that. So like
Yeah,
is
I g-
that considered software as a service, or does it go back like further?
technically yes, because it is still an ongoing, constantly evolving game where you still need to buy the base game and then continue whatever working with it from there. And I guess MMOs were technically the first of their kind to do this. World of Warcraft specifically making MMOs popular, to which everyone's like, "Yo, we need to have a World of Warcraft clone." God, I can't say that. To which a lot of them failed because they weren't trying to differentiate themselves from WoW. They were just doing WoW clones, literally. But I guess it's now turning into a lot of this is stemming from the microtransaction like
Today
loot
is not
boxes.
your speaking day.
It is not. I blame it on being Monday. A lot of it I think has to do with loot boxes and how successful they've been, where they are making more money off of the loot boxes for many companies over the base game themselves. Overwatch is a really good example of this, by the way. I know, Josh, you don't agree with Overwatch being as a service, but for me personally, I think it kind of fits because you have your base game, you have your base characters and your base maps. And in a year, they've added like 3 or 4 new characters. They've added a whole bunch of maps. They've added a whole bunch of different modes. And then they keep continuing with it through their loot box system, which is how they're able to make boatloads of money and to be able to push free stuff. Uh, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
So right off the bat, I don't think Overwatch or Titanfall 2 falls into this category at all, because the loot boxes are given to you for free. They don't alter the game in any way. They absolutely straight up do not alter the game. you do have to pay $60 for it, which is something different than Heroes of the Storm or even Hearthstone. So the fact that you do pay an introduction to the game and then they give you all of these things, they give you new maps, they give you new characters, all free, all to everyone, and the loot boxes, like I said, they just don't change the game. It's straight up cosmetic, which to me is a big difference between that and Destiny 2, where they released Trials of the Osiris and literally locked you out of content that you once had access to. And on the PC version, you basically had 3 weeks of Destiny 2. Uh,
Yeah, that was bad.
Trials comes out and it locks you out of content that you were only able to do for like 3 weeks. And so
Hmm.
for me, it's like it was really annoying because I was trying to get the platinum trophy. And then once when Trials came out, it locks me out of getting the platinum trophy from the base game because of the expansion. So that was annoying. I knew I wasn't going to get the expansion because I was just tired of Destiny 2. But for me,
Yeah.
that is a real that is them trying to be software as a service, or games as a service. They're adding new things, and it's not like one or two DLCs. Like Breath of the Wild, I think is done with their DLCs. They've released the two things that they've talked about, and I don't think that they plan on releasing any more. And so I guess it's like with Destiny, there's like a long-term plan of constant updates and constantly buying DLC. So instead of paying $12 a month, you basically wait 3 months and then have to pay $60 to get a new DLC pack. But that is like for a very, very, very long time. I guess the distinction that we need to make is at what point do we just consider it just like a one off DLC and not like a game as a service versus a continuing payment that you have to pay for the game?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like two different because it's like in the Overwatch example, Overwatch is trying to be that long-term game that they give you and they keep building on and keep updating and people stick around and play it for a long time so it becomes this evolving thing because they do add game modes and everything to it, but the way they're going about it is a very different model than what what comes to my mind when I think of the games as a service topic. Because like Josh said, it is funded from something that I think we'll get into a little bit more next week, talking about the like gambling psychology that's implemented in game and the addictive nature that some that games use to get people to keep coming back and keep doing things. And there was a lot of that in Destiny 1 as well, to try and help fund the games as a service bit that they were trying to do in Destiny 1. But I think there is definitely two very clear distinctions on if someone who buys Overwatch today can play, for the regular $60, can they play everything that the game has to offer, or do they need to have purchased other things or other pieces of the game to like keep active in that world? So like if I don't pay anything else in Overwatch for the next year, I can still come back and play. I don't have to have renewed my subscription per se in any way to that. But to Josh's point with Destiny 2, if I want to come back to Destiny 2 next year and play, I won't be able to play hardly anything unless I've renewed my subscription with the extra expansion DLCs or whatever.
Yeah, that was also. I mean, don't get me. And I guess we'll get into this. I feel like later tonight, but we'll talk about whether or not we think that like games as a service, if there's any merit to that. And but until we get to that point, Marsh, what were you gonna say?
To counter that, Warframe is free, completely free. You do not need to put a dime into it, and they are constantly updating that game. From what it was to what it is now is almost night and day different. But I would still consider that as a game as a service because usually what I consider a game as a service is they're trying to keep you coming back, usually to get you to spend money on something that is in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that
Yeah.
is just updating it to add more maps and stuff like that or add new characters, it's usually to try and get you to come back to spend money on something, which again comes back to loot boxes. And again, psychologically, we'll go into that probably next week, which is interesting because for me, I don't really see a whole lot of like loot box stuff in Warframe besides mostly you get the premium currency just so you can unlock more customization options. There isn't like a, oh, I have a chance of getting like cosmetic stuff. It's just you buy the cosmetic and then that's it. Like there's no random chance or anything like that. The only random chance in that game is like getting gear and stuff like that, which has nothing to do with premium currency type stuff. Other games, though, that haven't really used the loot box stuff, but have kind of introduced it recently. Rainbow Six Siege, actually, where that game, including For Honor, if you want to go into that route too, have constantly been updating. And Rainbow Six Siege, I believe, is in like year 2 or year 3 of, I think, year 2 of that game now, maybe year 3, where they are constantly basically they have seasons in that game where they add new operators, new characters you can do, you can play as, and you can buy them outright via cash through like usually an expansion pass, uh, or you could just simply use the in-game currency to get them over time. But it wasn't until recently that they added actual loot box stuff, because a lot of the like in-game like skins and all that stuff you can just spend on currency. But then they added recently, like maybe like last season or last like season or two, they added like loot box stuff that you can have a chance of getting skins. And it's weird because it's almost as if like you don't really need to do that at all. Like though I don't know if they changed how you can get skins though.
So for me, I know we keep kind of coming back to Overwatch, but I would disagree again. So the difference between Warframe and Overwatch is that the weapons you get in Warframe completely free. You're right; they absolutely keep adding to Warframe, and it's really, really, really cool what they've done. I feel like Warframe is kind of like a special case where they've just done something crazy and they've actually done it really well. But if I wanted to craft a weapon, I had to legitimately wait 72 hours for this to be finished crafting.
Yeah.
And so you could pay to have that quicker. Whereas and so you would have this new weapon that would help you go throughout your journey. So it incentivizes you to purchase real or to use real currency to get this weapon faster. Whereas in Overwatch, you can spend all the money you want on skins, but they won't change the game at all. And so that's where I feel like a distinction is.
That's
I
a
would
good
make
point.
oh, can I just say this one thing real
Yeah,
quick?
yeah, yeah.
Good.
To the Warframe thing, a lot of people, which I figured out as well, is if you're waiting on one thing to build, you're doing it wrong. It's you build multiple things at once, and then you just keep going and you forget about it. Like that one weapon, sure, it can help you get through the game, but you can also still get mods in in the meantime. Like that game specifically is really good at just giving you options of, okay, what do I want to do today?
Yeah. So what I was going to say is maybe wording it slightly differently or thinking about it in a different way, because kind of what I see from the conversation that we've been having is we're it's a pseudo DLC discussion, but it's like, so games are not anymore, or most of the time anyway, it's not an expectation of you pay $60, you buy the game, maybe one or two DLCs come out later, and then you're waiting for the sequel. Now developers and publishers are really into how do we make more money from this game on a basis.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of different models that we're seeing come out of it. We have the Overwatch model where it's, yeah, you buy the base game, you have everything that you want to actually play it. We are going to keep expanding on the game, but all the DLCs are free, and they use other tactics of funding that through getting loot boxes and making really awesome extra things that they want to incentivize people to do. You've got the Warframe type model where it's a completely free to play game, and they usually incentivize you to spend money on it by taking up real time or doing things by lessening the amount of grind that you have to do, or something like that, some kind of, in that way, that does affect gameplay at least somewhat, but is still not, it's not a forced subscription to it. It's
Mhm.
just, it's a different way to incentivize that, so that they can keep funding the updates and moving on with that, to have this game that isn't like, they're not making a Warframe 2, they're just going to keep building on Warframe. I mean, maybe they
Yeah.
are saying in this example. And then you've got like the Zelda model that is probably as close to the traditional, like what was the last generation gaming experience, where you buy a game, you get a couple DLC, and then it's done, and they start working on the sequel. And then you've got the Destiny type model where it's a base game and you can buy that and you can enjoy it and play it. And then when DLCs come out, the fundamental game changes and what's available to you changes. So you're incentivized, if you like the game and want to keep being a part of it, you really have to pay. So that's the most like Destiny would be the example of the harshest kind of like the closest thing to a MMO subscription fee is Destiny is the closest to that. But then you have those other models that are kind of derivatives of it, but just less harsh from a user experience and
Yeah.
give you more freedom to be able to say, yeah, I want that or I don't want that versus you have to have this in order to play my game.
Yeah, I like that distinction, and
Mhm.
it make like so like with Hearthstone, free game. But if
Yes.
It's
you
Hearthstone, not Hearthstone. Good God,
the
man.
it's my accent. I have a Florida accent.
Florida accent.
It is my accent.
You're hacking your accent. Is that it?
At least I can say World of Warcraft.
That's
So-
actually very true. Can you still say Millennium though?
Millennium. I can say
Oh
it now.
my God,
I can
you
say it now.
do it. I'm so proud.
There was like
of
an
you.
8-year period where I couldn't say Millennium.
I know it was really
It's
weird.
but so I feel like
Millennium Falcon.
it's there's you're almost giving a free to play game a little bit of a pass when you kind of have to pay to play because it was free. So Hearthstone,
Right.
you know, it's like, oh, if I'm gonna do like kind of like regular quick play matches, I will get worked because I don't have these certain cards.
Yeah.
Whereas
Oh yeah, in that case, definitely, especially when it comes to PvP type stuff.
right, exactly.
definitely.
Yeah.
Whereas in Overwatch, that is only PvP. You pay the base $60, but you are always on an even ground with everyone. So it's like
Right.
there's that tier difference, which is interesting, and it's games that like Destiny that charge you a base fee and then charge you an additional fee to basically be on a level playing field with everyone else. And that's where I kind of get a
Mhm.
little upset with.
Yeah. So I guess we can kind of maybe maybe pivot the discussion a little bit to what we came into this initially thinking. Because next week I really do want to dive into some of the addictive natures of games and loot boxes kind of stuff. But for this, maybe we can think of some other examples of games that have stuck around for a number of years and continued to build on like the base game. Like right now we have our three big examples, four with Hearthstone, but we've got Destiny, Warframe, Overwatch, and Hearthstone.
I've actually got an example one.
Yeah,
Do you guys know Path of Exile?
Yeah.
I've heard of it. Yeah, I
It
don't
is.
really
It is
know it, but
basically what Diablo 3 should have been in terms of what everyone was kind of looking for in terms of style.
Mhm.
It's that kind of top-down action RPG looter. In the very same vein as like Diablo 2.
Okay.
And the game is completely free.
Mhm.
The only things that you can that really I last I checked you buy money for is like tabs for like better ways to manage your inventory in terms of collecting things and what you have. I believe that's what that is. In
Mhm.
terms, mostly that's I'm pretty sure that's like the only thing you can spend money on. But the rest of the game is entirely free, and they have been adding so much to the game. I think it used to be like 2 acts, like main acts or 3 acts. I think it's now like 6 or 7, among other things, including like late game type stuff.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
remember
know.
hearing about an update to the game recently. I just remember seeing it being talked about.
Yeah, I saw a lot of streamers playing that recently because there was some sort of big ass update to it again. And
Mhm.
that game's been trucking along for years now.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
remember when that game was in like early access or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean it's we've kind of already named a couple of that have kind of done this, and one that is doing it currently is Shadow of War, which doesn't seem to make any sense to
Yes.
me. And I'd like you to talk
Mm.
about that, Marsh.
I would love to
Yeah.
talk about it because it's weird. Again, this goes back to everyone going, "Hey, we should add loot boxes to our game, right?" And like, it's there, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense why it's there because it's like you don't really need it. And I say
Mm.
that because sure they've got DLCs, they've got their expansion pass and all that, which they have 2 single player extra like content that like adds 2 side story stuff, I believe, in the future. Plus, they have 2 different Uruk tribes that you can buy, which are really expensive, like $20 each, which is not really worth it at all.
Are they really that much?
Yeah, they're $20 each, dude. It's so
Ooh.
stupid. Like if they were $5, totally, I'd be there in a second. But they're $20. No,
Wow.
if
I
I
didn't realize
buy
they were
both of
20.
those, I'm essentially buying a whole other game. Like there's
Yeah, I didn't
no
realize
point.
they were 20. That's insane. Hey, what's up, Kenny? Welcome.
What up? But in terms of Shadow War, it's weird because it's like what's in the loot boxes are high level captains and whatnot that you can add to your army, but they're only the level that you are at. So it's like, but if you're constantly leveling up, what's the point in keeping them? But and at the same time, it's like, sure, you're getting gear from them as well, but it's like, what's the point? Because you're also getting gear from everyone you're killing, and it's like, it's weird. I don't
Mhm.
really understand. I think it's mostly for like online play because you can get like you can actually get loot boxes and stuff like that from doing online play. They also have like daily challenges and stuff like that that they do to keep people coming back, which give you premium currency, which you can unlock boxes through that.
Mhm.
It's just weird. I don't know who has actually spent money on it. I don't even know if it actually gave them any money. I know it hurt the sales in the long run in terms of like
Yeah.
comparing the first game to this one. But it's like I almost feel like everyone kind of overreacted because it's like, "Oh god, everyone's adding loot boxes." It's like but they're just kind of there and they're not really useful. If
Yeah, I
that makes
remember
sense.
when we were watching the announcements and everything for that game, and then we saw that they were adding in the loot boxes, and we were just like, wait, what?
Why?
It definitely
Yeah,
felt like
it seems so out
tacked
of left
on.
field.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a tacked on. Oh, hey, wait, this just in. Overwatch is making a buttload of money on loot box. We need to add that into our game. It was either
Yeah.
Yeah.
that or they just like it feels like it was an 11th hour development decision where they're like, wait, lock a bunch of
Hey,
shit behind loot boxes so we can make extra money.
hey, World of Warcraft's doing great. We should make a World of Warcraft clone too. Yeah, right. That'll work.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's. I mean,
like
that's pretty much just what it is. Like
yeah,
everyone is literally jumping on the loot box bandwagon because of Overwatch.
So
And again, the loot box did so well that they added in loot boxes to Heroes of the Storm.
yep.
right, yeah, they added loot
Well,
boxes to Hero of the Storm for sure. But
they kind of yeah. Well, no, yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say there's a game that predates Overwatch that I think had loot boxes. And not talking
There's
about like
several.
Forza or anything like that, but I'm actually gonna say Rocket League
Yeah,
with the crates.
No, it was actually Counter Strike. That
even
tech.
before that was Counter
Oh
Strike
yeah, no,
and
for sure before that.
Well,
But
technically, one of the
you had
first was like
hats.
it was either NFL or FIFA. I'm pretty sure it was FIFA.
Oh, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was FIFA.
Thank EA, of course, for
Right.
starting all this
But
crap way
so
back when.
the reason I brought up
Shocker.
Rocket League is because Rocket League I think is different in the sense that it'll give you a crate. You can randomly get a crate, which is random, and then you have to pay to unlock the crate, which is also
Yeah.
random. So I think that is more of a game as a service um, than Overwatch is because the car models that you get that you can actually buy as DLC or unlock, they have different geometry and actually will change the way that you hit the ball. So
Right.
it's not necessarily like the Batmobile is used a lot by the pros because it's flat and it's easy to juggle on it.
That's
So it's like
true,
you're
yeah.
kind of at an advantage when you use that. But the thing is,
Yeah, and
Psionic
they hit you with it twice too.
they
Oh,
do,
go ahead.
yeah. But
Mhm.
it's I mean, Psionics is an awesome company. So it's like we don't. The
It's
game
also a
is
really fun game.
it's a
which
fun
also
game.
helps.
They do a really good job with it. All the new maps and events that they have are free, so you can always play it. Um, if you're not good, having a different car is not going to make you better. Um, you know what I mean? So there are things about it, but the crate system is a little annoying. I forgot that you had to pay for it because when we returned Friday the
Yeah.
13th, I had all this Steam cash saved up, so I've been using that to like buy the keys. So it hasn't been like an issue because I was like, oh, I'm not actually putting in money. I'm just making Friday the 13th worth something else. And so um, that
I
fund
do the
is
same thing. No joke.
yeah, that fund is going away slowly. And so when that happens again, it's like, do I spend $5 extra to get 5 more keys? And so that's is definitely game as a service, I think more so than Overwatch is.
Yeah, and also the cars and stuff like you're talking about that they release, you have to buy the cars. So not only are you're like your cosmetic stuff is in the game that you get from crates, and you have to buy a key to be able to unlock that. Then and that doesn't really change the game. But then but you're still having to pay for it. And then when the cars come out that can change the game at the higher levels of play, like you said, for someone who's terrible like me, getting a different car isn't going to make me not suck. I'm
Right.
still going to, but it can change. The hitboxes and things are different, so there is a competitive difference between the vehicles. But you have to pay for those separate. So those come out and it's like a $5 pack or a $3 pack or whatever for a couple cars that they release. So that's a paid DLC, and then the cosmetic stuff like you're talking about is you have to pay for the keys to unlock it.
Can I
So
throw a curveball real quick?
Mhm.
Trying not to like switch gears too much, but what would you consider Street Fighter Five to be?
Which
Terrible.
version of Street Fighter Five?
Yeah,
That is true. They now
the
have the
new
new
arcade
arcade
version.
edition.
Yeah,
But the
like
thing is, it's kind of along the lines of Rainbow Six Siege, where they're adding seasons of DLC of adding new characters, constantly building on it. And if you missed out on all that stuff, it's okay. You've got the newest version that you can just buy outright. I
Well,
don't know.
I would
Actually,
say
I don't know if the arcade version, the arcade edition, has the previous DLC characters though. I'd have to double check on that.
I think the arcade edition has it.
Does it? Okay.
I
it
think so,
normally
but I would say
does.
a
Normally
different
it does, yes.
and even maybe slightly better example of on that with fighting games would be Killer Instinct,
Oh
because
yeah, really good point.
Killer Instinct had multiple seasons that they released, and with each season, throughout the period of like 6 months, they'd have a new character release every month, and then that would then at the end of the season, that'd be it. So you had season one, and the game has changed significantly with
Yes.
every season. So like the base game and the characters that came out with that, it was it was a completely different developer than it is now. It changed hands after in between or after
Mhm.
season one, and so season two it was somebody else, and like it's changed a whole bunch.
Yeah, to
And
come to think of it, most of those fighting games nowadays, including like Injustice, like they're all kind of along those lines where they're constantly updating and evolving, where it's not just you have the fighting game and that's it. They're just
true,
constantly adding to it now,
the
which
s-
I
the,
guess it makes sense.
the slight difference to me is it still feels like a lot of the fighting games still feel like the way that it's been for the last couple of, or at least for the last generation of games, where you buy the game and they release some DLCs for it, and it does change the game because it's extra content, but it's not. But their intent is just to keep you there and playing the game until they make the second.
Yeah.
Like with Injustice, they did have new seasons of characters and things that were coming out, but it was just to kind of keep you around while they were working on the next Mortal Kombat or the next Injustice, and then
Yeah,
they
that's true.
released that. They didn't like nobody's playing Injustice One now. Um,
Yep.
with Killer Instinct, at least for the time being, they haven't announced any plans to make a Killer Instinct 2, and
It's
they
true.
do have a lot of they do have things that you can buy for KI Gold, which is the currency that you can use, um, you know, to real money to buy that currency, and that's where you can unlock the cosmetic stuff. If
Yeah.
you have once you have the characters unlocked, so it's interesting that it does span a lot of different genres of game.
I
That
will say though,
generation.
with Injustice, however, the reason why no one was playing it is because the netcode was so bad.
Oh,
Right.
Injustice One for sure,
Yeah.
Oh, it was
Um,
so bad.
but that's all. I
for
mean,
sure.
we were talking about Street Fighter Five, but I mean, how many versions of Street Fighter Four came out, and they were like, well, this one is tweaked and it's better than the
That's
previous
true.
one, and then you're like, well, why couldn't they just update it? So then it's like, if you're in
Right.
the fighting game community, are you just a super Street Fighter Four fighter, or are you an Street Fighter 4 arcade fighter, or are you just base Street Fighter 4 and this competition will just mess you up? So it's like I almost
Mm.
respect Killer Instinct more because it's like, okay, this is constantly open, we're constantly tweaking it to make it the best fighting game possible. Whereas like
Yeah.
Street Fighter was like, well, this one wasn't very good and we apologize for it, but you'll want the new one.
Yeah,
And so that isn't great.
Killer
Um
Instinct's free too.
it is, yeah, but wasn't isn't it like it's a hard paywall? Like can't you only use like one character
One character a week.
yeah,
Yeah,
It
one
rotates
character
out.
and it rotates every week.
right.
Yep.
um,
That
but yeah,
is League of Legends style MOBA of
yeah,
free
like
to play.
it's free.
It's free.
You
It
just
is
won't
But
be
free.
able to do
it's
anything.
free. Yeah, big air quotes there.
So
Yeah.
I guess I unless we think of like another example, I guess, where do you guys stand on games as a service? Do you think having a DLC model with like one off is good? Do you think like the loot box scenario is worth it? Like where do you think that this is good and where it's bad?
So personally, I like the concept and I like the potential for the games as a service thing because I don't have a whole ton of time to sit and play games a lot anymore. So I like being able to have like one game or two games that I play, and I play them a lot, and I play them for a long time. And so I'm okay with buying my $60 game, and then new expansions release, new characters come out, things like that, and it's a DLC type thing where I'm paying extra money for the same game, but I know that there's the development team behind that to continue to really keep the game evolving and be something that I want to play for multiple. I mean, like with Destiny 1, all the crap that I got, but that was like the only game I played for 3 years. I didn't really
Yeah,
play much
it
else.
was.
Didn't really
And
play a whole lot else.
you
Yeah,
know,
that's for sure.
No.
and so like I'm pretty okay with that model. Like if there's a game and the base mechanics and everything are good and there's a concentrated effort to continue to develop it and build on it, I don't mind paying for extra content. I do like it when it can be like the Overwatch model where you buy the base game and you always have everything you can play. And then they just fund that free DLC with all the loot boxes and everything. But it does feel that feels a lot more dirty to me than a more DLC based model because I like Overwatch and I want to keep playing it, but if I'm going to do that, then I'm going to be invested in what my characters look like, and then I'm going to be tricked into this RNG system to be able to get what I want. Whereas something that's more of a DLC or even like a Destiny model, I like the game. I want to keep playing it. If I don't pay for the thing. I move on to the next game. But if I like it, yeah, I'll pay an extra $30 and keep playing and get all the new stuff and keep going. So I think that suits me more.
You know you want that legendary skin. Why
Yeah,
is it legendary?
exactly.
Why is it legendary? Because we say it is.
Yeah,
Right.
I do. And then I know that my luck is terrible and I'm never gonna get it.
Yep.
Or I'm gonna get like
Or you'll get that Sombra
Oh, you
skin
get
that
the
you
Sombra
really
skin, that's
did
right.
not want to
Oh
get.
my god, I was like,
Yeah.
it better not be that Sombra skin. It wasn't even
Hold
part of
on.
the event.
We have to
Okay.
explain this story. So Josh was visiting me one time, and we were playing Overwatch. He was playing on my laptop. I was playing on my computer. And this is around the time Sombra came out. And I believe, Josh, I goaded you to buying a whole bunch of crates.
I think I bought $40 worth of crates.
Yeah,
It was an
sounded
impromptu
about
thing. I
right.
think it was close to Christmas, and I was like, "Merry Christmas,
Yes,
Josh."
you were
And
like,
then
screw it. Happy birthday, happy Merry Christmas to me. I was about to say happy birthday. I'm like, you weren't born. You're not Jesus.
but my initials are JC. Coincidence?
Oh my God. It's okay. Continuing on. And so, just as you're about to get down to the last bunch of loot boxes, you weren't really getting a whole bunch of them. I don't recall. And I'm like, you. By the way, and just to reiterate, Josh did not like Sombra when she came out. I don't think
She was broken. She was the most useless character. They underpowered her because Anna was so overpowered. So they compensated by making a completely useless character.
Yeah. And so I'm like, you're down to the last 10. I'm like, bet you the last one is gonna be a legendary. And you're like, no way. I'm like, no, it is. And so literally the last one, he hits it and opens, and there's a legendary popping up. He goes, oh, and it drops, and it's a Sombra skin. He's like,
And it wasn't.
and I start laughing my
Yeah.
ass off because of how perfect that was.
It was. I
It
think it was
wasn't even a
actually an
Christmas
epic
one.
skin. And the worst part about
No,
all
it
of-
was a
Oh,
legendary.
okay.
It was a legendary.
And
because I remember because of how amazing
Yeah.
that was. A, it was the last one. but
yes, it
B,
was the last one.
it's because it was Sombra.
And the suckiest part was it wasn't even part of the event that was going on. It was the
Nope.
base legendary Sombra skin. And
Yep.
I still continue to play Overwatch, but I was real angry. Real.
Yeah.
You were
real
real
angry.
upset.
Made me
It's like,
real
yeah.
mad.
Why did I just spend $40? And then you probably think to yourself, man, I should probably just dump another $40.
That's exactly that was my first thought. But I didn't.
Right,
I did not.
exactly.
But that is.
That's next week's discussion.
that
We're
is
not
next
going to
week's
talk about
discussion,
that.
right.
We can bring up the story again. Just yep.
So
And, go ahead.
yeah. So I guess for me, I I can't fault developers for wanting to stretch out a game's lifespan.
because it helps them make money.
It helps them make money, and they put a lot of time in this. And it's like you've got games like there are still Super Smash Brothers, the first one. There are still Super Smash Brother competitions, like throughout the world.
Those are just sad people. Let's be honest now. Come
It's I was actually the Melee
Oh
tournament
God,
was yesterday,
Melee.
and it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen.
They are nuts.
It is nuts. But
They
so
are-
it's like,
yeah.
they made this game. Like there's a huge community of people who are constantly playing this game, and a developer who had spent 3 or 4 years playing, like building this game from scratch, designing it, balancing it and doing all these things, basically only made money the first 2 years that the game was released, despite it having like a 10-year life cycle at this point. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
Mhm.
I can understand the incentive for them to try and extend the life of a game through DLC or doing things like this. And I
Mhm.
can't fault them for that, especially with games costing millions of dollars to make. To have one game last for an extra like 2 years as opposed to like the first like 6 months and get a little bit from it is huge, especially since you had to design a game engine, you had to build these assets. There's so much into it, and for them to just get a little bit extra out of a game, I can't fault them for it. But at the same time,
They're a business. They need to make money. I
right?
mean, that's
And
just
and
how that is.
I totally get it. I absolutely get it. But does trying to it's like you're almost like you're putting all of your eggs in one basket for a game. And if the game doesn't do well and you've already committed to a 4 or 5 year life cycle for the game, I feel like that you are hurting the spontaneous and creative games that once used to come out all the time, because it was like, all right, we're running out of ideas. We can't put all we literally cannot support this game for 8 years because this model is unheard of. We just need to move on to something else, either a sequel or something totally new and crazy, or something else along those lines. Whereas now it's like I feel like they're putting all these money into sequels of games that they want to last for like 10 years, and I feel like that hurts as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's I agree with you. I agree with basically everything you said, and that's part of my um, love for indie games.
The indie games, they're filling that niche.
Yep.
Yeah, because like you've got the AAA games that are trying to do really big things and be these really long games because they do cost so much money and they have so much overhead and they're trying to be they're either a sequel to something else or they're this game and they're going to try and make it last forever with some model that they have. But then indie games are where they do well and they come out because of creativity. They do new things and they can try stuff and take risks on new game mechanics or on a game being like absurdly hard that nobody can beat it. They can take those risks because they don't have the overhead and they're somebody in a garage with a vision and they do their thing. So that's indie games fill that for me. So I don't feel like I need to have constant new ideas and new innovations from my triple A game developed. So that kind of how I
Yeah.
works.
I see what you mean. Though I do say that there are still plenty of AAA games that are still going down that market of it's going to be this thing, and there may be like an expansion pass with DLC, kind of like Breath of the Wild, and then that's it, and they're gonna keep going. Like Days Gone,
Yeah.
which is that PS4 game
Zombie
from
game.
I can't remember who is making it, but like I don't see that game being a game as a service that it will have a
Yeah.
huge longevity. It is just going to be an open world game that will have its thing, and then that's it. Like
Yeah.
the new God of War, sure, it's another sequel, but at least they're doing a whole lot in terms of like making it different compared to
It's
the other
different.
ones.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
there may be DLC to it, and then that's it. That's all there's going to be. So
Yeah,
there are still plenty of games that you can get now, even AAA, like Bethesda's still, Evil Within 2, the new Wolfenstein, which I didn't hear was that great. But like there's still options in terms of if you want a bigger budget, but still want that single player experience. That
It's
you
true.
you can find them,
Yeah,
but
it's true. And I think that it's good if we can they can keep that going where AAA games, some of them do this games as a service model and some of them are just like, nah, we just are going to make a game and support it for a little bit and then move on, because I wouldn't want to see it go the path of all games but go this way. Like,
Battlefront 2.
yeah, I don't want I don't want all games to
No.
do it, and I hope that developers or publishers, really more than anything, can see that it doesn't work in every case, and it doesn't work for every kind of game, and it's not just something that needs to happen universally. That you can still make a game and be done with it, and then move on to either a new IP or the sequel. Because I don't want to see that become like the standard of, even though it does in some cases work.
I mean, it just depends on how it's implemented and whether or not it'll take hold. Like, I think EA is definitely hedging their bets with their basically quote Destiny style game. What Anthem, I believe it's called. Uh, but I keep hearing that development wise, it's not going super great right now. Uh,
Shock.
and
Yeah.
yeah, shocker, EA having development issues. Who'd have thunk? Um, but like that game could be a make or break on like where the industry might go, because if you have a huge company like that who like drops product out and it utterly fails, chances are a lot of our other companies are going to go, maybe we shouldn't do that because the waters right now aren't super great. Like again with Destiny 2, it sounds like it's having a lot of issues, so much to the point where content creators on YouTube are just straight up abandoning the game, including people on Twitch.
Yeah, it's
And
been
because
crazy.
and that is specifically the reason they're doing it is because their numbers of views and all that stuff aren't coming in. It's like no
Yeah.
one cares about it anymore,
The Division was higher on Twitch than Destiny was the other
which
day.
is fascinating because that game as a service like kind of started off like with the same way with Destiny 1 where it was there was a core game and there wasn't a whole lot there and it didn't really know what it wanted to do with certain areas like the dark zone was an interesting idea and they didn't know what to do with it. And so they kept working with it. They kept working with it. And then just recently they had a new patch which people weren't really expecting a whole lot out of it because like there wasn't really a plan to add a new season to it. It was just they were gonna like maybe keep tweaking the game. But the new patch added a whole new area. They did a whole bunch of stuff, and it seems like it's got really solid footing right now, as of right now, finally,
Yeah.
which is fascinating. So they can turn it around. Like Destiny 1 turn it around, I think. It took a while.
Yeah.
It honestly, I
did.
feel like it took until the last 6 months of its life to finally get to a point where I go, why wasn't this stuff here? Like
Yeah, the Taken King was
being
excellent. That was great.
not I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about like the age of triumph that they had, like the last year of the game, essentially, past Rise of Iron, where they had a huge patch that brought back all of the old raids, added new rewards to it and stuff like that, and added the higher caps and all that stuff. And so that way you can just do whatever the hell you wanted. And you had options, which I feel like for a lot of games as a service need. Um, which is why I always keep harping back to Warframe because it's like that game you have so much crap that you can do. You can a lot of it involves farming, but that's the whole point of the game. You grind out stuff to get new stuff, to get cooler stuff, to be a sick cool dude. Um, but then you have stuff like Battlefront 2 where it's like, here, you want this loot box? You should get this loot box. Why? Because we want you to buy it. It's like, why? Why would you do that? So I don't know. There's a weird yin yang going on in terms of a service of, are you trying to do it because you want the longevity of it to progress to make more money to make it a better game, or are you trying to progress it so you can sell loot boxes? If that makes sense, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for me it's like I don't feel bad about the loot boxes with Overwatch because they are
No,
constantly
because it's
tweaking the
mostly
game.
just a base game. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but
Agree.
no, I totally actually Ty said that he brought up Sims 4 and he said if you bought all of the DLC, it cost $420 to buy the base game and all the
Oh
price
yeah.
of the DLC.
It's like Battlefront 2, right?
Right. Well, actually, didn't they say it would cost upwards of $1,000? And the thing
Yeah.
is,
Battlefront
those
2
loot
was
I
insane.
think it's
boxes,
worse than that. Yeah.
they straight up 100% affect the game that you're playing. It's not.
Mhm.
It's just not cosmetics.
I mean, really, with the Sims, it was just DLC, 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 DLC over time that you would just pay the base price
That's
of
right.
it, and
Oh,
then
I
that's
forgot.
it.
Yeah, you would have like the
It,
Sims pets and
it
like
wasn't even loot boxes. They just now disguised DLC as
And
sticking it into a loot box and to get you to pay for something that technically is already in the game.
well with like
You're not even
yeah,
adding on to it. It's just there.
oh no, well with like Sims 2, it's like that was before like there was a lot of online stuff. So it's like that made sense. It's like, hey, you buy this expansion and you can now like I said, like get pets or like
An
go to
actual expansion, no, though, not like a glorified
Oh no
DLC.
no no no.
That,
This was this was
yeah,
way
no.
back. This was like Sims 2 where it
I
was
mean,
like
remember, beta used to actually mean something that didn't mean a glorified demo.
yeah,
I mean,
it's oh beta is just
uh,
that's in
yeah,
what
so
games
true.
haven't been in beta? I feel like Gmail started like the beta trend where it was like,
I don't know.
oh, we'll just keep Gmail in beta forever as a
Yeah,
joke, and then now people do that.
Yeah,
but
no,
now it's actually a thing.
Yeah, because like what was it? Minecraft had been
Minecraft was
out
alpha
for
for
about
a
7
while.
years, and it was like still
Yeah.
considered
well,
alpha, and then it would like
Yeah.
release.
Warframe is still a beta. Like
Warframe is
that
still
game,
beta.
Warframe's still a beta,
Oh
dude.
my
That game
god.
never actually came out. Like no
Oh,
joke. That
that's awful.
that's the running. It's the running gag of that game. It's always been in development. It never actually came out,
So
which
That's
is
really funny.
like
which is
that
hilarious.
so here's like another thing. It's like if you spend enough time on a game forever as a developer, it will eventually get good. So it's like
Right.
do you just assume that the one game that a developer is going to release will eventually get good and just keep putting money into it? But then you also have like, we were talking about Destiny and how when a new DLC came out, you'd have to buy the game. And a lot of people were so mad about the Taken King because they would have to rebuy everything,
Yeah.
but it changed the game a ton, and it was they were still kind of like making content before Eververse became a thing, and so it was like they could only make money through the DLC expansions, and then now it's like there was this huge shift, and despite the outcry of everyone from Destiny 2, especially saying that the Eververse is like really dumb and like why is all this end game content locked behind a paywall, or you were purposefully throttling XP so he couldn't get to it faster and be forced to
Yeah,
pay it.
it's getting real stupid with
They
that
they
game.
haven't they straight up have been like, okay, we're reworking it, but they will not get rid of it because they need
Well,
Eververse.
that's the same thing with Battlefront 2 of like they're like, all right, we're gonna redo some stuff and we're gonna and in parentheses real small talks and we're gonna bring it back in the near future. Like for many, like it's past that point where they can get rid of it. So it's like you kind of have to just like deal with it.
Yeah,
So either you deal with it or you just stop playing and you're like, screw you. Like again, that's what with Destiny 2, everyone's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just gonna go over here and have fun. Like again, a lot of people have been moving to Fortnite, which is weird because it's not even the same type of genre at all.
it's like
Yeah.
And I can
TF2.
also see a lot of them actually, which I'm very curious to know, since Monster Hunter World comes out tomorrow, and I don't actually know specifically how they're gonna keep updating the game, but I want to say that it will also be like a game as a service where they will add more stuff over time. Like
New
that'll
monsters
be a
and
thing that
weapons, probably.
yeah, new gear, new weapons,
Mhm.
new monsters, all that stuff. Because like they have a good foundation to be able to do that. It's now a matter of how are they going to make money off of people doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the big question of how far are they going to go to try and gouge people's wallets. And I guess you got to find that medium when if you want to make a game as a service.
We don't they don't publicly release their numbers that they get from games, but I'm curious as to how little player base is actually needed to still be profitable with something like Eververse or loot boxes. I mean, if basically everyone in Destiny was like, this game sucks, we're done, but only 10 people were left playing, but
The
they kind of
whales.
like invested into the Eververse, is that enough for them to just keep doing it?
Well, I mean, depends on
Yeah.
how much money it's
Yeah,
really
it
giving
depends
them.
on how much money
Yeah.
those 10 people are putting into it.
I mean, there have been developer conferences with topics literally talking about the whales, like literally
Yeah.
Oh
calling
yeah,
them
the
the
people who
whales,
spend like
who
single
tens
people.
of
Yeah,
thousands of dollars because they have a problem. That's where the whole gambling thing has been cropping up now lately because of the loot box thing.
right.
Because you have people literally dumping
Right.
thousands upon thousands of dollars into your loot boxes and stuff. Which is why everyone's going, we need that in our game. Which is why Shadow War did it, because we need that in our game. Does it have
Right.
any use? Not really, no. But it's there. I mean,
Stuart makes a good point in the chat. Stuart said beta is an excuse to not invest in support or quality assurance and just claim it's still under development.
It's absolutely
pretty
true.
much. Yeah.
It's like,
It's like,
meh,
why bother?
it's in beta. Can't get mad at
Yeah.
me.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you will. I mean, some games who are constantly under development, like early access, is could be an example of a game as a service that you are a service, meaning you are buying into it early to help quote the development of it to help progress it end quote. And some games never leave early access, and then there are others like, for instance, Subnautica,
Oh,
which is actually releasing tomorrow. It's
wow.
finally done, and that's
Nice.
been in development for years
A long
now.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, the stuff that they've done to that game is amazing. Actually,
That's
it's real cool.
I was
pretty
hoping,
cool.
especially for the indie game scene. I mean, we had a podcast on this a long time ago, but when we talked about Kickstarter, and the hope was
Mhm.
that Kickstarter would kind of like supplement the indie scene in a way that triple games kind of ignored, but Kickstarter
Right.
didn't end up working out. But
It got flooded.
well,
there's no
Yeah.
there's
right,
no
there's
quality.
no like yeah,
Yeah.
and so now we've got games with loot boxes.
Hey, I still believe in Kickstarter. This shirt is from one of the latest things I backed on
Oh,
Kickstarter.
right on, very cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
No,
Oh.
it's still great, but it's just like
It is, but you're right. I mean, it didn't. It wasn't it wasn't a good enough threshold. Like Marshall said, there's not enough quality control.
Yeah.
It's too
Yep.
easy to get something up there, and it's too easy for things with very low effort or very low goals to get funded.
Yeah.
Wait,
So it
are we mistaking Steam's Greenlight with Kickstarter? Or
Yeah,
are we
it's
actually
same thing,
talking
yeah.
Kickstarter?
Um,
I just thought it was like,
basically this-
wait,
Yeah, it's
hold
basically
on.
the same thing.
So I guess I mean we're getting close to ending, but it's like
Yeah.
it's like if the game is good, it sounds like we'll keep supporting it, which kind of sucks
Yeah.
because it's like at this point I've
How do you know if it's going to be good? When it comes
right
out, like when you're developing or when you release?
and then
Mighty Number 9.
right yeah, or do you just wait 2 years after it's been released and then hear that it's good and then
Right.
jump on, which is what I did with Destiny. And honestly, it's like the more I look about Division, I think I might like Division a lot, but like, do I want to at this point?
Dude, you can probably get that for the game for $20. And
Oh
then
no,
all
no,
the
I know,
DLCs
but then it's like that's
$50.
another thing that I have to play and learn and get used to, and then level up because people will just destroy me because I'm 2 years
Yeah.
behind. So like,
Well, here's the thing: the Division. There's not a whole lot in terms of like multiplayer. Like there are like 2 multiplayer like actual PvP modes. You do have the Dark Sector, which you don't need to go into at all. Period. And then there's the one mode that behaves like Player Unknown's Battlegrounds, where you have 24 people in a map, and you have to get out. You have to survive and escape. Like that's it.
everybody-
The
Yeah.
rest of it is just like PVE, like
for
Destiny.
sure, and it's
Yeah.
that's totally true. But then at the same time, it's like this game has, we'll say, 3 core components: a PVE, a underground PvP, and then a battlegrounds PvP. And then I'd be neglecting 2/3 of it if I didn't feel like leveling up my gear and stuff like. So it's like it's kind of like, why would I buy this game just to only play the 1/3 of it that I think seems neat? And that seems
Yeah.
kind of like a waste to me. But yeah, it's like I guess I don't know. I don't really have a good answer because it's like if a game ends up getting good in the long run, it's like, well, I'm glad.
It's a matter of
but-
how they can balance it.
Yeah.
I think though I must say I think the Division works because with the PvP actual like PvP modes where it's like a team versus a team, they normalize all the gear level.
Oh, that's nice.
The only issue is like perks
Oh yeah,
on
those right.
sets of gear are still on, and some of them are really good. That's a problem. But then also the Player Unknown Battleground game mode is you start off with
Everyone
nothing.
starts with nothing,
Right,
right?
yeah.
Yep.
Everybody's
You are the whole shtick is you get infected during a blizzard, and you have to get clothes to survive the frozen tundra that is New York City right now, and then also delay the inevitable virus that is going to kill you if you do not get rid of it, and then survive dealing with the 23 other people that are trying to also get gear and survive and all that stuff. Go to the dark zone, get the cure, and then extract. And then extracting involves having to survive, waiting for the chopper to arrive. Other people may be trying to kill you, but then also when you spawn a chopper, a super highly powered NPC comes to try and kick your ass. They don't have a lot of health, but they have literally all the gear that you have in terms of your abilities. It's super cool. like what they've done with that. And
Yeah, I remember
know.
seeing that. It did look really cool.
it's
But
just
I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is stop pre-ordering games.
Stop. Yeah, absolutely.
yep.
Stop.
That's actually
Wait,
pretty
wait a
good.
week.
Stop it.
There's nothing wrong with waiting a week to see if it's okay. Because word of mouth through the internet travels super quickly now. So it's really easy to tell if a lot of people are going, hey, there's actually something really wrong with this. It's like, oh, I've been spending 3 days on it. It's been great. Day 4. Wait, that's it?
Yeah,
That's all there is?
we're done. Yeah.
What? We're done?
That's a
That's
good
it?
point. Yeah, because I mean, if
Just wait.
to buy a game is paying for a service of some sort, and so if you wait,
That's right.
and you find out that if that's a service that you are willing to put money into, then you don't get screwed like we all did with Destiny 2 because we thought it would be better.
Yeah, if only.
Josh,
Though
it's
I,
so
though I
good.
will say with Monster Hunter World, chances are it's going to behave like all the other previous Monster Hunters. So I knowing that from what I know of the little bit about Monster Hunter, there's already going to be a lot there to it. And I already know what like the whole thing is. You go out, you kill a monster, you get the gear back to make better gear to go get a bigger monster to kill it, to come back to make even better gear. It's so on and so on and so on. But there's a
Stop
lot
hyping
to
it,
it.
Joe. We're telling people to not pre-order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No
Don't
pre-orders.
pre-order Monster. Wait till it
No,
comes out. See if it's actually good.
For all we know, it could be completely broken tomorrow.
And actually,
Who
one
knows?
of the
He's gonna buy
one
it.
of the greatest
He's gonna buy it.
inventions
No, I'm not gonna buy it.
of our generation is Redbox. Game
Redbox
comes
is
out.
great.
What
You're
about
like,
GameFly?
oh
What
yeah,
happened to GameFly?
what did
Is it
happen
still
to
around?
GameFly?
Is
It is still around.
They
Okay.
changed
Yeah.
their logo.
Did they? Huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all I
I
know.
know. I have beaten many a game through Redbox in a day, and I spent like
Avatar?
$2.
The Last Airbender.
No, I played
did not do
the
that.
last
Was
Call of
game-
Duty that came out. Call of Duty
Oh, that's right, you did.
World War II.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
Redboxed it, played it for a weekend, had a good time with it, and then I was like, okay,
You
I'm
played that
done.
one? How was it?
Yeah. Meh.
That's
It
what
was
you said,
World
yeah,
at
yeah.
War with a new
Just
coat
me.
of paint.
Oh,
Yeah.
well.
And
Like, it
also
was
black
literally
female
World at War.
Nazis.
But anyway.
In multiplayer. But anywho, I digress.
I mean, yeah. But Redbox is great. If it's like, oh yeah, I really want this game. It's getting a lot of hype. You can just play it. Like with Monster Hunter, I played the beta a couple of times ago, and I had not played any other Monster Hunter games. Went into it thinking that I was going to absolutely love it, but holy crap, the controls are complicated.
There is
And
a
it
lot
took-
to it.
Like I had to sit there and stare at the screen for about 10 minutes before I
Okay.
could do anything because I'm like, what's happening? So anyway,
I can explain
Or
why it's so confusing for a lot of new people. Okay, so the whole point of Monster Hunter in Japan was it was very much a mobile game because a lot of it was always on DS. And so it was a social game where you could always end up finding someone somewhere in Japan while playing who was really good at the game. And they would always come and help and teach the new players because they knew what was going on and what to do and all that stuff. And so right now, for anyone who may or may not be interested in Monster Hunter World, just wait and find someone or look up people who know what they're doing with that game and learn from them. And that's how you do it. Like it's a little different because it's a console game and compared to it being on like the DS and all that, where you could just go find someone. I mean, you should be able to find someone in Monster Hunter World because I think they have like a hub area, and
Yeah,
I think you can
think
party
they
up
do.
with people there. So it's like, we could end up in a situation like that, which would be really cool, I think. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see with
Yeah.
that
We'll
game.
see. All right.
we're way off topic.
Yeah,
Yes, it is 8 o'clock. Josh needs to go and watch The Bachelor.
we all go and watch The Bachelor. That's what we all do.
No. You go watch.
We
The
all do it. All three of us.
Go. Keep going.
It does. So
Yeah.
guys, thanks so much for watching. Next week we will be talking about the psychology of loot boxes a little bit more, which is the first time we've known a topic a full week in advance.
Yeah, it
Yes.
really is.
So
This is
It's
true.
great.
and then also if you guys have any comments, you know where to put them, or if there's any topics you'd like us to discuss, let us know. And we do the podcast every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Kayla will be streaming on Thursdays on Twitch at 7 p.m. And follow us on Twitter and on Facebook, but mostly here. This is a good place to follow us.
All the wonderful social media stuff.
We do that, and then
Subscribe to us.
and
Yes, every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
yes,
Yes, Panda. One
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Um,
Monday. Cool. So that's about it. All right,
Thanks
thanks
everybody
guys.
for hanging out.
No,
Thanks,
sorry.
everyone.
It's time. We have to watch The Bachelor.
It is time.
Marshall and Caleb
Josh.
need to watch The Bachelor.
Oh God damn it.
But all right. Bye guys. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Later, everyone.
See ya.